Hi, this is Joel Applebaum. I'm the Chief Content Officer with IRMI, and I'm here live with our guest today to talk about InsurTech and agriculture. We are very pleased to have Hugh Burgess with us. He was the keynote at the live Agricon conference in Richmond, Virginia. It was a sold-out conference, by the way, so congratulations. We're very happy to have you here as our keynote. We have one more conference this year. It's in Des Moines on September 24th and 25th, so we hope that you will, if you haven't been to one of our conferences, you'll come and enjoy and learn. And today, talking about InsurTech, I have a pretty impressive speaker here with us, so I kind of want to introduce you, but I realized I looked up on LinkedIn that you were the CEO of the Americas for Allianz Global Corporate and Specialty, and now you're the CEO of Vendati. So, you know what? Just tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you get to those roles in insurance?
Yeah, very traditional background in a number of carriers. Broke into the industry as an actuary, and I like to say I'm an actuary by education and by training and perhaps by behavior. But I've had the pleasure of being in claims roles, in underwriting roles, and a variety of leadership roles that ultimately culminated with becoming the CEO of Allianz in the Americas. It was a lot of fun, but now I'm really having fun being at an InsurTech company and doing a lot of things that I'm getting a first chance at doing.
Oh, awesome. So tell us how you think that tech and data companies are going to, change the insurance marketplace for agriculture.
Yeah, and at the conference, I asked folks to stand up and not sit down until they thought of a pain point, something that they, in their underwriting or agency or claims loss control professional days, would like to change. What is something that causes pain in their work? People quickly sat down. And apparently it comes right to the forefront of their minds, and one of the key messages I had today was that those pain points, those things that are easily changed because there's just a better way to do them, a simpler way to do them, thanks largely to technology or data, are the legacy that's most vulnerable to change through InsurTech.
Cool. So, give me an example of one of those things, like the thing that you think is most likely to change in the next year or two because of InsurTech that impacts brokers in the agribusiness space.
Yeah, I think there's a good, healthy debate whether farm insurance purchasers, ultimate farm insurance customers, will go direct and purchase insurance on the internet or via an app like you're seeing with auto or homeowners or some of the personal lines coverages. Even if you don't believe that's going to take place, there are things that we do today in farm insurance. For example, a 9-page Accord application that is often handwritten and often left very blank finds its way to a variety of carriers. Some use the information to decline, some use it to quote, others use it to ask for more information, but nonetheless there's a process being fulfilled that can be replaced, probably still through an agent, but ultimately through a data exchange rather than a manual, perhaps including handwriting and paper process to transmit data from one to the other. I think that makes the customer's life easier, the agent's life easier, the underwriter's life easier. It can take a lot of the pain out of it, a lot of the work out of it, streamline it, make it quicker, and ultimately make it cheaper, which can translate to savings for the customer, can translate to efficiencies for the agent, and certainly can translate into greater underwriting margin for the carrier any of those three, or perhaps all of those three.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I found that interesting when you were talking about that in your presentation. I think you also mentioned that, is there enough premium in the personal family farm to have inspections done by humans, right? So maybe talk to us a little bit about how you think that might change, related to, hey, great, we're gonna get the application in an automated, easier to exchange process, but how might the decision making or the inspection process change from InsurTech?
Yeah, I think through InsurTech, I think you're going to see a bifurcation of the business, including farm insurance, where below a certain threshold, it's too small of a risk and therefore too small of a premium to have enough money in it to afford a human being traveling however they would travel, through car or perhaps even through plane or train or whatever the method of transportation, to a remote farm location and inspect it and do all the work associated that wonderfully experienced and seasoned agricultural loss control experts do, and bring that information back in the form of a report, often in terms of a written report that takes time even after the inspection is done. You put all that together, does even maybe an average premium, but certainly a smaller premium that makes up the lower end of the spectrum of premiums for farm insurance. Is there enough money? That said, if there's a technology-driven process like a drone or data from third parties that are are easier to obtain and are as accurate to help assess the risk, wouldn't that free up the humans, the wonderful loss control professionals that do the human inspections, for more complicated, above an average premium, and perhaps do even more of those, or more thorough and we've talked a lot in this conference about emerging risks in farm and agriculture, and likely we'll need those loss control engineers and professionals in the ag insurance space to be evaluating those in a personal, transporting themselves to wherever it is and going to inspect them. So you can see a bifurcation of the two.
Yeah, that's interesting. I really like that. I'm kind of a actuary geek myself, and one of the things that I have been excited about in building models and how it could change our industry, one of the reasons IRMI participates in agribusiness is because there's so many deaths. So part of our mission is to impact risk in places where lives and livelihoods are in danger. So we're in construction and energy and actually ag. So wouldn't it be nice if we freed up the safety engineers to be looking at more or identifying early potential to eliminate some of the costly lives and livelihood impacting losses and not spending time on routine, measuring of a building or acreage. So kind of cool. So what source or sources of InsurTech data could impact farm underwriting in the future beyond what we just discussed? I think I could give you an example that I found interesting in your presentation and the keynote, which you called texting cows. But kind of help our listeners understand what kind of new data could impact farm underwriting beyond what we've already discussed.
It sounds really far out there in terms of texting cows, but if you Google it, you'll see it's actually a very real thing. What essentially it does, though, if you peel it back a little bit, it really speaks to an example of what you're talking or asking about, and that's sensor technology. Right, that sensors now are being proliferated, being manufactured very cheaply, and yet becoming more sophisticated in the data they can transmit back to whoever ultimately uses it, including hopefully more and more, or likely more and more, the insurance industry. So cows can actually be a sender, a transmitter of data, so that there's a better understanding of where cows go throughout the day or and they can transmit things like topography, transmit things like weather conditions, transmit things like fire. Ultimately, if there's a behavior reaction that could be traced back to a fire, there could be a text. Just for the humor's sake of it, not for the serious sake of it, but perhaps there could be a text from that cow because of a jumping motion or a running motion. I'm not sure how fast or if they even do run, but as an example, those types of things become data that can then be used by insurance industry, can be used by the fire department, can be used by a variety of things, and ultimately it leads to something like a texting cow. Perhaps a more realistic or more normal example is the smart house, right? The smart house is certainly a prototype, if you will, for the smart farm. The smart farm just takes the smart house and goes beyond, and to maybe texting cows, to sensors on fences, to sensors on things like a windmill, to sensors on a variety of places to help transmit data on the farm for insurance purposes or for safety purposes or for purposes that would have required a human to use their eyes and visually inspect or randomly sample, as we've done in the past in the industry. Those things, again, it generally has to be something more simple and normal and straightforward. The more complex things or the newer things on the scene, like drones and some of the other things we're talking about here, are going to take a while before they can be replaced by a sensor transmitted data, but there is so much that can be replaced by the transmission of sensor tech.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's, my understanding of the agricultural industry is, soil sensors, remote sensing for watering or fertilizing, and soil sampling is somewhat common. In fact, our own instructor here, Casey Roberts, did a class yesterday where he said that 50% of farmers utilize some sort of precision ag. So InsurTech and precision ag are probably the same. I think of it as like satellite farming. John Deere introduced the GPS guided tractor for fertilizing and those kind of things in 1990. And I think Casey said that he had some predictions that precision ag and InsurTech related to ag would be about a $43 billion industry by 2025. So we definitely want to get our risk managers, our underwriters, our brokers, our MGAs really thinking about, what can we do to make sure that they're ready, that we're protected, and that they have the coverages that they need so that we can remain a successful and growing industry. No pun intended. So I was wondering if you might talk to us a little bit about where is cyber insurance headed for agriculture? How does that fit in? What are your thoughts on that, Hugh?
Well, it's again, a very forward-looking. There's today, it's not that it will start down the road. It's already started in terms of an exposure, and it was actually in another class and part of the conference here in Richmond. There was a great session around cyber as it applies to ag, and the need for this coverage, and as we move forward, the even larger and growing need for cyber insurance as we do things like precision farming and harvesting. That's in many ways an autonomous vehicle. Now, autonomous vehicles run on software, run on remote control, run on programming, and that brings in a cyber exposure to it that can be hacked. So it can cause damage to the farmer's property or the farmer's crops or other things, and as well as it could cause harm to neighboring properties or third parties and create a liability exposure. All of those things really, and you can go from there as the more technology goes into the farm, and Casey's class around farm tech is a great one, and then I actually tried to piggyback on Casey's class that farm tech will in many ways enable InsurTech to address farm insurance much better, because the creation of data is largely coming from the farm tech itself. that in turn helps farm insurance piggyback on a lot of that same data and use it in new and perhaps even more objective and more accurate ways. But all of that increases cyber liability exposures, cyber property exposures, and will continue to do so at an accelerating rate as we use more and more technology throughout farming and throughout farm insurance.
Awesome. So, I was trying to envision some potential risks. That's what I like to do. I was also an underwriter, so in that autonomous vehicle, you're ready to harvest your crop. It's got to come out. You got a long day ahead of you, and suddenly, what is it? Is it ransomware that they can be hacked, or in the Midwest, we recently had an organization mistreating animals, so you could be targeted by somebody thinking of animal rights, or there's forever news about genetically modified, so the GMO thing. So farmers do potentially have exposures or groups that might want to ransomware them, cause damage. So I don't think that a lot of people are purchasing cyber today, and I believe maybe you could just briefly tell us a little bit about Vendati. And you're an MGA, right? And you're the CEO. Do you see a lot of your customers in the ag space currently purchasing any type of cyber for ag?
It's a low take-up rate currently, but it's an increasing take-up rate nonetheless. And as what's great about the industry is not only providing the coverage that's needed that we just talked about, and protecting farmers against those risks that are out there that you just elaborated on very well in the list you provided, but it also leads to education. It leads to loss control and prevention and safety measures. It leads to a lot of advancement that really helps mitigate and risk manage, not just through insurance, but through the all the different ways we can manage the risk, and really improve agriculture itself through providing risk management and insurance. So we're at the earliest stages of it, and as it becomes better understood, Casey does a remark that the horse, sometimes it takes the horse out of the barn to come out of the barn before we close the door. So ultimately, unfortunately, more claims on the cyber side will ultimately lead to more purchase of the coverage too. That's a natural. So our low take-up rate, but nonetheless, there is if you go back 5 years ago, it would be only a handful of carriers even providing the product. Mm-hmm. But now you have many carriers providing their product, and then many providing it in the InsurTech way, like ourselves at Vendati as an MGA, providing that as a product that can be purchased amongst multiple products in a InsurTech way to help carriers and agents in the ways we talked about at the start of the conversation.
Awesome. So, tell me one thing you think everybody should know about InsurTech.
Yeah. The number one thing is that it's here. A lot of people think it's a fad. Almost reminiscence of the days when people were opining that the internet was a fad. There's a lot of us in the insurance industry that I think that InsurTech is just a fad and it will go away. It's here, and many are providing new ways to do insurance, including farm insurance, today, and many more are coming. Some are even becoming widely recognizable names in the industry. So InsurTech is here, and farm insurance is not on an island. Again, a natural, easy way to see how InsurTech will play a role in farm is just to look at what's going on in home insurance, other than perhaps the buying online, but extend some of the user experience and make the agent have benefit from the user experience, and you see faster, better ways to do farm insurance. I think that's an easy transition where you will see that evolve. So InsurTech is here, and there's more coming, and ultimately it's a good thing because the legacy is most vulnerable where there's a better way to do things.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And one thing I've seen, in agribusiness, they've embraced a lot of technology. I think that we hear in our courses and from our brokers that attend our conferences as well as our carriers that there's a lot of drone usage already in farms for remote review of crops, water situations, livestock situations. It's saving them trips out and back. They're just running the drone out there. So could you envision, that piggybacking of drone insurance and drone technology also being any type of game changer in the next 5 years?
It's absolutely yes.
Okay.
In fact, there's some companies already issuing policies with sensors.
Okay. Awesome.
Then that's going to become more and more popular, and so that it allows your policy to be more tailored from a premium standpoint, from a risk assessment standpoint, and ultimately from a coverage standpoint to your needs, to the underwriter's satisfaction in terms of getting the data and information, to easier transactions from an agency standpoint. All of those things will benefit, and it's already here, and it'll just become more and more. Some of it, you don't even notice it's happening, but it's coming. Agents are now buying farm insurance online on behalf of their farm. That's happening with our company. We're thankful to be in that space, and more of it will come.
Great. Well, Hugh, I want to thank you for your time today. I think it was an enlightening interview. Appreciate you keynoting our Richmond conference, and we wish you luck.
Pleasure
Thanks.
for mine. Thank you.